Life had become so exciting. After quickly finishing my homework, I ran with Monty to our forest hideout. I was desperate to find out how to help my parents. I told Monty everything I had heard about their loans. The dog listened carefully and began. If people have debts, they must follow 4 pieces of advice. First, throw away all your credit cards. People spend much more with cards than they do with cash. I decided to write everything down. The second piece of advice: repay loans as slowly as possible. The faster people try to pay them off, the higher the monthly payments become, and the less money is left for actual living. Money, why are my parents' payments so high? I asked, feeling a pang of sympathy for them. I think I already knew the answer before my loyal friend even opened his mouth. My parents constantly complained that the bank took almost everything they earned. They were convinced that by paying more now, they would save on interest in the long run. To them, it seemed like the only logical way out of the trap. Manny looked at me with his wise, almost human eyes. "Listen to me carefully, Kira," he began in a calm voice. "Imagine you borrowed 5,000 euros. Every year, the interest alone costs you 300 euros. But you also have to pay back the actual debt, right? If you decide to pay back just 1% of the principal amount, that's another 50 euros. Total, 350 euros a year." I did some quick math in my head. It seemed simple. Pay more and the debt disappears faster. But Mani shook his head, noticing my thoughts. At first glance, that seems correct. But many people agree to such huge payments with the bank that they can barely manage them. They make a fatal mistake. They underestimate the cost of living itself. Food, clothes, bills. And what if the car breaks down or the roof starts leaking? They are left without a single cent. And what do they do then? They take out a new loan to pay off the old one? I gasped, struck by this bitter truth. Monty wagged his tail happily. He clearly liked how fast I was catching on. Exactly. It's an endless trap. Your parents must first learn to manage with the money they have right now. Otherwise, no matter how much they earn in the future, their problems will only grow. Expenses always tend to rise along with income unless you control them. I opened my notebook and resolutely wrote down the first point. Throw away all credit cards. Then, after a moment's thought, I added the second. Negotiate for the lowest possible loan payments. I decided I would definitely ask Mr. Goldstern to talk to my parents. They would surely listen to him. Monty waited patiently for me to finish writing, then moved on to the most important part: consumer debt. These are the debts people make out of foolishness. For new TVs, trendy furniture, or cars they can't afford. The golden rule here is 50-50, he said solemnly. Half of your remaining money goes toward the debt, and the other half you save. But Grandma always says you should pay back every last cent to get that weight off your shoulders as soon as possible. I argued. And what do you achieve if you pay back everything? Nani asked. Your parents will end up with zero. And zero cannot be a goal. The goal is to save for a dream, like a trip to America or a new laptop. If they don't start saving right now, they'll have to take out a loan again for their next wish. Living with savings brings joy, while living in debt only brings guilt. I bit the cap of my pen. It was so simple yet brilliant. I wrote down the third point. Save 50% of the remainder and use the other 50 for debts. Avoiding foolish debts became my new internal motto. And finally, the fourth tip, Monty's eyes twinkled. Put a note in your wallet that asks, "Do you really need this?" every time you reach for your money at the checkout. You'll remember our conversation. I laughed and lightly tapped him on the nose. Only people who don't have a miracle dog like you need a tip like that. Monty licked my cheek, and I wrote down the fourth point. That evening, I realized one important thing. I would never end up in a situation like my parents. I will save first and then buy. Now I knew the rules of the game.